Civil rights has to do with the human decency, the privileges granted to a human, just basic rights that each and every individual, whether it be in the United States of America or just around the globe, deserves and is offered.
It's a lot of pain that comes when it comes to saying those words to older generations.
Education is very important because it helps us gain this knowledge that we want to know, that we can change in our world and make something better of it.
New perspectives in our world, and of course make something of yourself.
I have the right to go to school because I'm also an American citizen. So no matter my race or my age, I feel like I should also have the same rights as everyone else.
Oh, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. Freedom of saying what I want to say, when I want to say it, and how I want to say it. That's very important.
So with the Little Rock Nine, it was a group of, I believe, 9 African American students.
Very brave. I personally probably wouldn't be able to do it if it was still in that time.
They had courage to walk in that school because I would have walked too. Sure, forget that. Forget all the other people that was seeing.
We have progressed a long way with equal rights.
And I strongly believe that it is something to study and it is something to be educated about, especially in today's hypersensitive society. So yeah, that's my little synopsis of what civil rights is.
The African American Civil Rights Movement was an ongoing fight for racial equality that took place more than 100 years after the Civil War. When most people talk about the Civil Rights Movement, they are talking about the protests of the 50s and 60s, led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others who were the catalyst for the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
It will not be long because truth crusted will rise again.
After the Civil War, many southern states continued to treat African Americans as second-class citizens. They implemented Jim Crow laws that kept black people separate from white people. They required separate schools, restaurants, restrooms, and transportation based on the color of a person's skin. And other laws even prevented many black people from voting. In the early 1900s, black people began to protest the Jim Crow laws, and African American leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, and Booker T. Washington were at the forefront of creating equal rights for all people. From establishing the NAACP in 1909 to ensuring equal rights for all without discrimination based on race, to forming schools to educate African Americans in order to improve their status in society. The 1950s and early 1960s brought about several major events in the fight for the civil rights of African Americans, including Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, where Thurgood Marshall won a lawsuit in the fight against segregation in schools, Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, which brought Dr. King to the forefront of the movement, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed segregation, and the Jim Crow laws of the South, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which said citizens could not be denied the right to vote based on their race.
And we shall overcome.
The Supreme Court ruling that segregation in schools was illegal in the case of Brown versus Board of Education had given the civil rights movement the momentum it needed to grow. Despite the ruling of the Supreme Court, some schools in the South would not allow black children to attend. On September 25, 1957, in Little Rock, Arkansas, federal troops were brought in to allow 9 African American students to attend a previously all-white Central High School. The next year would bring life-altering change. On the first day, when the students arrived, there were people yelling at them. They told them to go away and that they did not want them there. And their way into school was blocked by National Guardsmen deployed by the governor. After the Arkansas governor got involved in stopping the Little Rock Nine from attending school, President Dwight Eisenhower sent the U.S. Army to Little Rock to protect the students. A few weeks later, the students attended school surrounded by armed soldiers. Having the soldiers only protected the Little Rock Nine from harm, but they still had a very difficult year. Many of the white students treated them poorly and called them names. It took a lot of courage for them to go to school. After the first year, the Arkansas governor closed all public schools in Little Rock for a year. He decided that it was better to have no school at all than to have integrated schools. When the schools reopened the following year, many people blamed the Little Rock Nine for causing them to miss a year of school, causing racial tension to get worse in the coming years. Although the immediate results of the Little Rock Nine's actions were not positive, they did help desegregate public schools in the South. Their bravery gave other students the courage to move forward in the years to come.
I'm Minnie Jean Brown. I'm thankful for the many people who have stood by us and worked diligently in our struggle for...
The 9 courageous students were Minnie Jean Brown, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Thelma Mothershed, Melba Patillo, Gloria Ray, Terrence Roberts, Jefferson Thomas, and Carlotta Walls. They became known as the Little Rock Nine.